Okay, we're live. Okay, we are having a discussion today with four people. We're all typed in the objective personality system as sleep last. So we're going to talk today about being sleep last, what that's like, struggles we've had, stuff like that. And we have people from each of the four different quadrants. So like I have NT sleep, and we cover all the others, NF, ST, and SF. And I'm going to let everybody introduce themselves, and let's go ahead and start with Catherine. Do you want to start?
Yeah. Hi. My name is Catherine. I'm a double feminine SEFI consume play blast sleep. So I have double masculine NF sleep last. So I'll try to explain what that's like.
Reggie, you wanna go next?
Sure. Can you guys hear me? Okay. Yeah. So hi, my name is Reginald. I do go by Reggie, but I'm in audio ENFP jumper, play consume blast and then sleep last. So my sleep is double masculine SF last. So I'll also do my best to kind of explain that.
Julia.
And hi everyone, I'm Julia. So I am a double feminine ESFJ sleep last, so FESI. So I have one of my sleep animals is feminine, one of them is masculine TI, feminine SI, so ST sleep. And one of them is a savior, and one of them is a super duper double demon at the bottom.
Yeah, and I didn't really mention mine. I have NI first, it's feminine, and then my third function is TI, it's masculine, so NT. We got a bunch of questions from the community, some from Discord, some from, I came up with a bunch of questions. I watched a bunch of Dave and Shan videos and like pulled out stuff that they were talking about and made some questions out of them. So we're going to start with the definition they give us for sleep processing. They have process and preserve energy for self before expending energy for the tribe. And that's like the savior version of sleep, I guess. All of us have demon sleep. So how do you guys all see that definition based on how you see your own sleep, I guess? Anybody want to say anything about that?
So
I mean, it should be reversed, I guess, right, for us.
It should be what, reversed?
Yeah, like we're expending energy for the tribe before we preserve it for ourselves. Right?
It's funny. I don't necessarily see, I've looked at this a lot, and I feel like my sleep, it's hard for me to see it as preserving energy. Yeah. I don't see myself having a lot of energy issues in that I do go and expend a lot of energy, but I'm also really good about like, I need to like calm down, especially because I'm looking at my feelings. So like if I'm riled up, I'll calm myself down. And like I sleep 8 hours a night, every night, like clockwork. My sleep has always been good my entire life. I don't see myself as that, like I have so much trouble preserving energy. For me, it's more like I feel like my brain won't stop because I have like any FE play. So I feel like I've always kind of felt like there are bouncy balls in my brain. Like my brain will just be on to the next kind of random thing. But not necessarily like actual like energy necessarily. It's moving on to the next like NF random thing. But I feel like I don't have a ton of energy issues, I guess.
That's interesting. Do you think that part of that is also being savior OI? That you will be able to kind of create routines for yourself and manage your energy in a different way?
I think it might be savior OI. That I do create some routines. They change all the time. They're hard, but like I still have that urge. And I think actually maybe even more so savior SF. I'm really aware of bodily sensations. If I'm doing too many things and my bodily sensations, my feelings are getting off, I'm going to stop. So like one of the anecdotes that Shannon and Dave have for sleep last are like they'll, like be sick and then go and do things anyways because they're savior play and they don't even notice that they're getting sick and they'll just run off and do those things. And I feel like when I've actually noticed this myself, when I get sick, sometimes I will have the urge to go and play energy, do the thing, but I'll also be aware my body's feeling off and I shouldn't. And I get a lot of anxiety and conflict there. And it's something that I kind of like have to process and work with. But usually I'll choose to actually take care of my like SF body and not go and, crazy run around like a play maniac.
Wow. That's really interesting, because before this call, I was thinking I started shaking, and I was like, I don't understand why I'm shaking. Like I'm not tracking my body at all, even though I'm SF. Yeah. So then I was like, okay, I haven't eaten in however long. That's why. And this happens every day. So in that way, I guess I'm more stereotypically sleep last. But even though I'm SF,
even though we're both SF, that's funny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I'm tracking my energy all the time. Like, okay, because like I want to do something, some activity. I'm like, okay, do I have energy right now to do that?
Uh-huh.
So that is something I'm tracking all the time. But we're all info dumps. We shouldn't really be doing that, right? Or I don't know.
Right.
I'm constantly thinking about it.
But so maybe something that I've been thinking about is, I think, who are you comparing yourself to when you say that you track your energy levels?
Right. Yeah.
And that is, I think that is maybe the thing where sleep lasts get tripped up, because I also think that I'm lazy, right? And that is my motivation in life. Right. So because I have this double masculine inner world that tells me that you're not doing enough, even you're not doing enough for the tribe, like you need to push harder, you still have a long list of things to do, you're so lazy. That is my entire inner world. So I think, in comparison to others, when I decide to slow down, I'll log that and I'll tally that up when that happens. And I'll be like, you did this, remember that you rested 5 weeks ago? You're not going to let that happen again. So it's, I think it's a spectrum. Yeah.
It's funny to hear you say that you feel like you're lazy, because I feel like I'm the same way. And it's something that I've been like noticing, that I feel like I'm so lazy, yet I'm also getting so much feedback from the outside world that I am like doing a lot of things and I'm really productive. And I kind of like can't like, I feel like I have not yet resolved that, because I still feel like I'm really lazy, and like it's so hard. It's mostly like so hard for me to get like a plan to like last or do my thing. And then but I'm like, but I have gotten a lot done, and so it's like I don't know. I haven't resolved it.
I haven't too. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. It doesn't seem to add up. And that's something I've been working on lately, is just to kind of log and tally up all the things that I actually have done. And then I'm like, I guess I am productive, but it's also a sleep last thing to you don't want to admit that to yourself, and you don't want to celebrate that either. Right. So it's, reality doesn't match up with your self-perception, I guess. Yeah.
We need to own that stuff, and that's what we're not doing.
Yeah. Right. It's interesting. Yeah.
Reg, you have anything you want to add to that before we move on?
Oh, sure. I mean, I would definitely say, if you guys can hear me, I definitely would say for me, the best way I would summarize my experience of sleep last, I do feel like I expend a lot of energy, and I even get feedback from the outside world of saying I'm taking on too many commitments, right? Like even at work. Like my boss, like it's a weird thing. I don't know if everyone hears this from their boss, but they're like, yeah, like you actually didn't have to do that. I get that a lot. It's like you actually didn't have to do all that. You could have just done this. And I definitely resonate very much with this feeling of I subjectively feel lazy, but I feel guilty for not working. So that is very much a core driver of mine. And then finally with the SF like element, and I'm sure we'll probably revisit this, but like just the double masculine SF is I do feel like I put that off. Like there are a lot of experiences in my life that I kind of put off revisiting and organizing and seeing how I felt about it, good or bad, and building my life around that. So that ends up with me with a lot of like I have a lot of emotional and mental clutter, how I would describe it. And like the emotions get too exaggerated and one-dimensional, and my plans get too muddled because I'm not actually going in and picking apart, okay, I felt this way about this, I felt this way about this, and it just cleans that up. So that's basically it.
All right. Let's see. ready to play about.
This sounds familiar.
Okay, we're gonna jump into some questions now. I got a bunch of questions on the screen here. Sleep processing is processing our known information. Each of us has different sleep functions. So how do each of us see our particular version of sleep? How do your function modalities have a role in your sleep, I guess? All that stuff. So your particular, like for me, NT sleep. Yeah, I could go ahead and describe that, but why didn't somebody else start? I don't want to start here. Julia, you.
Sure, yeah, I can go ahead and start. So I this video comes at a very good time because I actually just a couple weeks ago realized I had totally misunderstood my own sleep. I probably hadn't really thought about it very much, but I think I thought that my NT functions were my sleep. So I had previously kind of had this like little routine where I would kind of wake up in the morning and I would try to like think through things and almost like solve problems. And to be honest, almost like come up with ideas and solutions for things, which I'm realizing is like my NT. And not necessarily consume, but just like NT, thinking about things and solving problems. And I was like, oh, I'm doing my sleep. And I can kind of like do that pretty frequently. But I recently realized that's not actually my sleep. My sleep is actually ST sleep. And the way I realized this is, and I think also I may not be doing any of it ever at all. That was a big like, oh my God. So the reason I realized this is I went, I visited my family for the holidays and I actually drove because I didn't want to fly. And when I came back, I ended up spending a night, actually 2 nights at the university where I went to undergrad. And I hadn't been there since college, actually. And so I went there and I ended up walking around the campus and walking around the downtown area and walking around like the apartment complex that I used to live and all of the physical spaces where, you know, I used to spend time. And in my head, I was doing my ST sleep, going over my known information. And it was literally, I took a class in this building. This was the class. Here's where I went. I lived at this place. I made the decision at this time to move into this physical location. I went to this restaurant at this place and I ate this food at this time. And it was actually very emotional because it sounds a little bit bizarre, but it was just sort of a reminder that like I am a physical human who exists in the world on the planet. And like I have done things in the past. And it also reminded me, okay, I'm also a human that's going to live this long in the future. And like, then I can make these decisions in the future. And it was kind of like a jumping off point for me to like plan my future.
Wow.
So it was a very bizarre experience, which tells me that I'm not doing my sleep processing very much because it's unusual. And it was like, I did this physical thing in this location. And that was what reminded me of my identity, that I'm a person, and also helped me think about my decisions and also got me into the mindset where I could like make goals and plans for the future.
Wow.
Very
Really
interesting.
Good. Wow.
So yeah, that's my ST sleep, I think.
Wow.
Maybe.
I know. Yeah, we're all trying to figure this out. So we're all gonna be like, I don't know, that's what it seems like today. Maybe it'll be different tomorrow. I don't know.
Yeah.
Catherine, do you want to?
Yeah, I'm just thinking because obviously my sleep is very different from yours. It's probably, I mentioned to you before we started this call that, you know, when I was trying to type myself, I thought I was an EJ, right? Because it's a strange process, but my feelings come to me as a demon when I start sleep processing. And it's what I've noticed is that, you know, the NF sleep last is kind of, it's this, you know, room where I just throw in all the bad feelings, right? The not so powerful feelings, like the feminine feelings is kind of what needs to, its room is in sleep kind of. And so when I start sleep processing, I guess what I'm doing is processing emotions on the back end. And it's never feelings of power. Am I making sense? Am I talking from sleep here? but it's so it's when you talk about, you know, ST reality and processing that, I'm doing the exact opposite. I'm going very abstract, and even when I'm in sleep and when I've had sleep crashes in the past, I know that I start talking in a very different way. I start sounding like a hippie, you know, because and people will react to it, and they're like, "Wow, it seems like you're going through things." But it's so abstract that it's hard to explain, you know. And I'm there not very often, so it makes it even harder. But what I can say though is that it is a place of very intense pressure because it is double masculine, and it's not a place where I necessarily want to stay for that reason. It's it's ultimately not. It's hard work, I would say, and there's a lot of pressure on self.
When you say intense pressure, what does that mean? Like, what? How can, I guess, in my NF extroverted brain, I think, how is NF pressure?
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's really hard to say, but when I hit a sleep wall, and now I'm not necessarily explaining NF here, but when I hit a sleep wall, it does feel like running into a brick wall. That's exactly what it feels like, and there's no other. I have no other choice but to just kind of be weighed down by everything that I have not processed. And I'll be very harsh on myself for not processing it as well. I'm not sure if you can relate to this, Reggie, but
yeah, I can. I experienced that as well. Like basically all the reason I was like nodding in the background was I have the same emotional experience as you, Catherine, but I'm doing it with the sensory that Julia described. So if you can imagine,
Right.
I'm revisiting the sensory, but instead of just like, you know, how she was describing it, for me, I'm revisiting the sensory and the pain in all of it, or usually, and it's intense. You know? Like if like a good example of that would be like if you had to revisit like the place where you broke up with somebody, right? That type of shit. You know, that's an example.
Yeah, and it's interesting now that you say that you revisit the sensory, because I guess what will happen to me when I sleep crash is I'm so wrapped up in everyday life that the question that I ask myself is, but how did I end up here? Was this my plan? Is this actually what I want to be doing? There's no, it's this like intense urge to think about the future because I've just accepted reality and I've accepted experience, like sensory experience, as the only thing that I can do and the only thing that I'm allowed to do. So all of a sudden it's like, but you're allowed to also envision a different reality for yourself. And yeah, so it's usually a pretty painful process, to be honest.
So is it like NF sleep? Is it like the pain that's associated with you like envisioning your future possibilities or like your future path? Like pain associated with kind of abstract things that will happen in the future?
Yeah, not necessarily associated with the future, but it's more, I guess it's more the realization that I'm allowed to dream, you know, and that I would never allow myself to dream in a savior state, right? And I don't have access to it unless I crash, which is kind of sad, to be honest. But so there is a lot of thinking about the future involved in NF sleep, yes, because it's like hopes and dreams and possibilities that that felt too unrealistic to even consider when I'm just, doing my SFST kind of, whatever it is I do every day, Anyway.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
So I had a question for Catherine with your NI, because since I have lead NI, but it's feminine, yours is masculine, so I'm not sure how different it is. But for me, it's trying to understand the why of my thoughts. Would it apply for your feelings as well? Like, why do I have these feelings? Like analyzing from that perspective.
Yeah, sure. I think seeing patterns in emotions, which is maybe why I kind of relate to savior TEs. I'm not one of them, but I do have a lot of trouble understanding my own feelings, and I have, maybe because I'm masculine FI, I have a very easy time shutting off emotions if they're not welcomed in a certain situations. So maybe what happens when I hit sleep is that I'm then allowing kind of for the, you know, the spectrum of emotions to exist without me judging myself for it, and also understanding that I've had, you know, things could have happened in the past, and I could have had emotional responses to things that have happened to me, and I never connected the dots as to why I was reacting a certain way, or that I was even having a reaction.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's pretty chaotic if you think about it, being a feeler in a savior state, but not being able to understand those. It makes a person a pretty erratic, wow. I'd say. Kevin, I wanted to ask you, how do you experience NT sleep?
Yeah. I'm learning new pieces of the puzzle all the time to understand it. And just the other day when Reggie was interviewing Anissa was talking about her NI-FI sleep and like planning for the future. And like, I was like, well, I do that all the time, but I wasn't even considering that part of sleep. Like I'm always planning to try to avoid chaos. Like I'll have a goal in mind. I want to get from here to this goal. How am I going to get there and have the least amount of chaos happen to me? So I'm always doing that planning all the time, day to day, whatever. And I was like, that's part of my sleep too. I wasn't even considering that. Like I've just recently realized I need to focus on my identity and self-awareness, that side of sleep. Like take my thoughts and like analyze it with my NI, like why do I have these thoughts, and like drill down to my truths or values, and then analyze those when I get there. Like, is this a value I should hold? You know, I've never done that. That's not I've compared my sleep last to like a junk drawer in your house where you just throw stuff in it and you're like, I'll clean it later. And then it gets full and you start another drawer. I don't go back into the first one. I just start a new one. That's sleep last to me, is not doing that organization, not getting into those thoughts and clearing them out. I never knew that people did that. So now I'm like figuring it out. Like, so I keep discovering these new ways that, like, I talk about NT puzzling as a part of my sleep, but that's kind of the engine that I use. It's like, here's a puzzle it's like playing video games. You learn the pattern. Oh, I need to get here. I have to do this. That's, to me, that's NT puzzling, figuring it out. But I use that to work on my identity. It's like, oh, I have a thought here. What is this thought? And dig down to my values. And then, oh, I need a plan for the future. I want to get here. How do I do that? I NT puzzle how to get there. So I'm just trying to figure all this out, and I'm figuring it out. But
so my understanding of it, or from what I've observed is that blasters, or blast as an animal, is able to kind of plan for the tribe, right? So you can plan for others, and you can kind of factor other people into that plan and steer a group in a certain direction. But sleep is also, you know, whether it's SI or NI, it's the ability to kind of plan for yourself as well, you know, or I'm not sure if it works the same way for SI, but for me, I would guess it's the same, I guess. Like, because if I think about blast, I do recognize when I use blast, and that I'm able to factor other people in and like move them in a certain direction, but I can't for the life of me do that on my own to myself. I can't steer myself because it's unknown territory completely. Yeah. Strange.
That has to do with the demon NI side of that?
Could be, yeah. Could also be that, yeah.
It feels, when I think about like my blast versus my sleep, because they're pretty far apart for me, right? Yeah. I think of it as like my blast is really the getting started part. Like I want to have a plan in action. Yes, for the tribe, but a plan in action to like go and like get started on something and just like move forward. Whereas the sleep is like, I think of it especially as building. Like, what am I going to do that I can do again and again and again and again? Like, if I have a little ST routine, how exactly am I going to do it so I can repeat it day after day after day after day? Whereas blast is like a project that you need to get started on, and then you make a plan, and then you do that thing. You don't necessarily need to repeat it day after day after day after day after day, you know? Whereas the sleep is like, you need to know how you did it so you can go back in there and then repeat it.
Yeah.
Here we go. Grace said, Catherine, that was an amazing description.
Maybe I do understand it after all. Amazing.
Yeah, I mean, we're just trying to figure this out, right? I mean,
we're play processing it. Yeah.
Let's jump to the next question here, if everybody's cool with that. What do you see as a benefit of doing sleep processing? So, like, we're trying to figure it out, and we're starting to do it. Like, what's the benefit of doing it? Why are we doing it?
Ask all the sleep lasts. What's the benefit of doing the thing that you're never doing? There's no benefit.
When I first found out I thought, why do I need that, right? When I first found out I'm sleep last, I don't need that. I'm doing enough of that. So stupid.
Yeah,
what do you got,
I think I can speak. I think I can speak on this one actually. So, so for me, the biggest benefit is it does lead to a sense of like inner like peace and clarity for me to like actually act, right? So I have a lot of like emotional like issues like dysregulation and stuff like that. As previously mentioned, it's like there's a lot of emotional clutter that happens. And I think especially recently, whenever I do what I consider legitimate sleep, which is kind of like just either mulling in an emotion for a while and then just like identifying like why it's there and, you know, just like separating it from other emotions. It does actually allow me to see that usually it actually helps me realize that things are not as bad as I thought, right? Like, so a good tangible example, I've been in my job for about a year. And I was getting to a point where I thought I didn't like it, right? Like it was in an environment, like a lot of other people there aren't happy. And I think I just absorbed that. And, but when I actually took a step back recently and like actually wrote, basically what I did was I just went through and just tried to remember an experience that was bothering me. And then I was like, okay, what are the emotions associated with that experience? And when I started doing that, I realized it's like, yes, I still have problems with the job, but I didn't hate it. And that was an important difference, right? So what that allowed me to do is like I'm able to work more again, because it's like now it's not a matter of, oh, I hate it and like, you know, I'm shut down for the whole day. It's like, no, you're frustrated, or you don't like this person, so you should avoid that person, or you don't like this process, so you should minimize that process or delegate that process. So it does lead to a lot of energy preservation. So I'm not spending energy on things that I don't need, but now I actually know what to avoid.
And something you're saying also, which I've realized with sleep last, is that once you do find something in sleep, you know, once you make sense of something that's happened or an emotional experience, or I can't speak for the other types of sleep without FI, but it's this, I think what's a positive is that we end up acting on it, right? We end up implementing change straight after having found something in sleep, because there's still that extroverted energy to kind of do something with it. So there is, it's like, it's adjusting the course of where you're heading, you know, at least with NI, I'm not sure about SI, but, and I couldn't agree more. It's, you know, I've spent, to be honest, the better part of 2020 trying to identify self patterns, even before I started studying OP. And what I found was that, you know, the more you sleep process something and the more that you make sense of something, you kind of learn to balance, what was your responsibility in a certain situation and what was someone else's responsibility. You kind of see I am able to kind of connect SE and NI to see, what actually happened in a certain situation. And with that information, I'm able to kind of see a new course. So if I'm just running in a loop my whole life and I'm always taking right, but then all of a sudden I started seeing that I was like, I can actually go left. I have a choice with this new information, and I know what is true now. I know what is true, and I know what was my fault. I know what wasn't my fault, and I can utilize that information to kind of create a new path for myself into the future, which is, it's very useful because, not to rant too long about this, but I think when you are very extroverted, you kind of live your life very fast, right? There's a lot of extroverted energy, so you end up doing a lot of things. And you're going to end up making the same mistake over and over again until this is NI again, but until I actually see it. So when I actually see it, I'm able to kind of make something in reality with that NI. I'm not sure if I'm making sense, but that's
you are. So if you find it, if I can just piggyback that a little bit. What's fascinating to me about that is I experienced very similar realizations with my SI, right? So I don't know if what you're saying is as exclusive to NI as you're saying. I think the key difference is one, that it's not I guess probably the key difference in, at least in my experience, is that I need to see that I've experienced this before. Right, it's that's kind of the emphasis, right? There are a lot of lessons that I've learned, but then I'll ignore. So it's I saw the pattern, but then I forgot it. So it's not a matter of so maybe that's the key difference. Is but I guess the experience for me is the same. Where it's more of I'm being reminded of, hey, you already learned this, right? You're going around in circles for no reason. You already know, you did this a bunch of different times. Here's the sensory to remind you of that. Hold on to that, and then go down the path you were supposed to in the first place. So there,
right?
I don't know. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah. I see the pattern of not processing my identity. I don't have much self-awareness. I see that accumulates. And then some big crash happens where I wasn't processing stuff, and now I have to rebuild myself from the ground up. It's I see that's happened multiple times now, and it's if I were doing this sleep processing for my identity, working on that, these things wouldn't happen. I'd be maintaining it the whole way instead of it builds up and then just crash. So that, to me, that's the big benefit that I'm going to get from working on this sleep stuff for sure.
Yeah.
So
And
just more even energy.
Yeah. For me, it feels like the way I kind of conceptualize the benefit of my own sleep is being able to control my own behavior, control my own time, control my own schedule, so that I feel like I can really make decisions about what I'm doing and just my own actions and the projects I'm taking on, and just make my own decisions about my own behavior, so that I don't feel like I'm constantly a leaf that's blowing in the wind and just doing the things that the outside world pulls me to do, So it feels like the benefit of my sleep is having, just control over my own behavior, kind of.
Wow.
Okay, I have a question actually for Julia, just based on this interaction. So, Julia, when you're doing sleep processing, do you feel like you're learning new patterns about yourself, or are you feeling reminded of things you already knew, or is it a mix of both?
It's hard for me to answer that, because I feel like sometimes I don't know what is due to something that's sleep last and something that's due to feminine SI. I forget stuff a lot, but I have feminine SI, and then I'll repeat things. Is that just because I'm sleep last? So I don't know. When I feel like I kind of understand the pattern in terms of, I will tell you this, in terms of information, understanding information, understanding like what's going on about something to do with information. That pattern I understand really, really well. And that's in my masculine NE, and I'll remember it because that's where like my memory kind of for information is. In terms of like the things that I've gone and done, or like things that like I like to do, maybe like patterns and things that like I like to do or something like that. That stuff I'm like, forget.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like gone from my brain.
Wow. That's interesting. Wow.
Interesting, yeah.
But a lot of that is feminine SI. I don't remember the sensory. What was it that I did? I don't know. It was
Right.
in the past.
I guess which is good to hear. I guess my question, maybe if I rephrased it, like, do you ever feel like you're surprised by yourself when you do sleep processing, right? Like, so the reason I say that is because both Catherine and Kevin seem to be puzzling out like who they are with the NI. So just to explain this, all I'm seeing, my hypothesis right now is like NI is seeing a new pattern. I don't feel like I see new patterns with myself. I've been known this shit. Like, this is not. Sorry, I've been known that I'm.
I think what you're saying. They're puzzling out their own patterns. Gosh, I don't know. I don't know how to answer that right now. I'd have to think about that. I think I see what you're saying. That like, if your sleep is sensory, then if your sleep lasts, would you be surprised by? Oh, look, it's a thing that I'm frequently doing or something like that, like a pattern in my own behavior, maybe like that'd be NT sleep. So I think I see what you're getting at, but I don't know how to answer that right now. Sorry.
Well,
what about you, Reggie?
Yeah.
What about, I feel like I've been the same since birth. I'm not different. Like at the core of the same person. Like,
yeah,
it's frustrating. I think that's the aspect of my sleep that frustrates me, especially like my double extroverted saviors, is because I want to change and I want to be different. But I think part of my sleep is this realization that no, at the core, you're the same person. Like, and nothing's changed. Right. So you have to like, for me, it's like I have to return to myself, but it's not like I'm learning anything new. Like, it's like I've always been like this, you know?
Wow, yeah, you actually make a good point, the immovable inner world, because I can relate to that. When you say you felt like the same person since birth, I can strongly relate to that. Yeah, it's very consistent the way that I've been. I think. I hope. I don't know. Actually, I'm talking about it. I'm like I'm doubting that what I said was true, but I feel that way. Yeah.
For me, actually, when you rephrase it like that, I don't know if that's the same question you were asking, but for me, I feel like I don't feel like the same person since birth. And part of my I'm trying to like process this to see if I can answer your question.
Yeah.
When I review the things that I've done and the actions that I've taken in the past, it does remind me that I am on a path that is actually changing. So I don't know if that's reminding me of my own patterns, but it's reminding me that like I was this person 15 years ago, I was this person 10 years ago, I'm this person today. Oh my God, I could be this person in 20 years. Look at this human being that I could be in the future. That's amazing. So it's reminding me that I am on a path that, I could change, and I can change it again in the future if I wanted to. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It does. It makes sense to me. I'm interpreting that as, it's like you're seeing how the sensory can change for you. Like,
and that's, I feel like a weirdo combination between sleep last, but also demon OE, because it sounds like discovering, oh my God, I could change, discovering OE, but then also sleep last in order to discover OE, I have to go over my known information, which is weird.
Yeah.
Really good. Yeah.
Yeah. What you guys were saying about you feel like you're the same person all this time. I feel like I've glacially moved. It's like slowly. It takes a lot to move, but I have moved, but it's not a lot actually. When I look back, it'll be big events that move me, and then I stay there a long time, slowly moving. Yeah.
Interesting. And so you mean that your identity slowly moves?
Yeah.
Right.
It takes a lot of effort to move my identity.
Yeah. Because that's something that I've said to friends of mine in the past, that it's really awkward for me to look back at the way that I used to be. I mean, in the extroverted world, because I've skimmed so much, and I've been so many different kinds of people to kind of get to sleep, right? That I say that I feel like the same person since birth, but to the outer world, I've done many different things, and I am always doing different things. When people see me, it's like, oh, okay, you're doing this now. Interesting. So yeah, on the outside, I move a lot. On the inside, maybe not so much, I guess.
Yeah.
Wow. Getting deep. And
yeah. Yeah, isn't that the point?
That's the point, exactly. Right? How difficult is it for each of you to do this sleep? Is it like a struggle? Is it like, are you putting a lot of effort into trying to do it, or are you avoiding it?
It fucking sucks.
I thought I was doing it all the time, and now I realize I think I'm not at all.
Yeah.
It's tough. Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah.
I've started to see the thought where I'll have a thought that I know I need to process, and I can see my old pattern is to stop. Don't worry about that. It'll take care of itself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm seeing that now and stopping it. It's like, wait, no, it won't. That's the problem. I'm not. So I pick up my little tablet. I got it right here, this little thing, and start writing. Like, I need to process this. What is this? Take 5 minutes and just write. That's working for me right now. So I'm doing that, like catching the thought and seeing that I don't want to do it. I'm putting it in that, drawer, and just, it'll take care of itself.
I identify with that so much, Kevin. Like, you have no idea. Oh my God. I feel like there's kind of two things that come to mind. The first is like the bouncy ball brain, which is like when I encounter something that is clearly, obviously has hit me in the face, that clearly I need to think through this thing. My brain, it's very painful, and my brain is immediately like, why don't you do something else? Yeah. Find something else to distract you that's not that thing. Don't sit here and think through that thing, which to me is just demon thinking, right? Like, I don't want to go into my brain and actually put those blocks together and see what makes sense and actually what fits. And it's hard, it hurts for my brain, and I want to like jump out. And that I can feel myself doing. And I also find that I do have the ability to kind of say, okay, I don't want to do that, and then go in and like think about something. But then there's the second part, which is like actually going over my actual known information and like remembering the sensory, physical things that I have done in the past. And I feel like that's just a big blind spot void that I'm like, that's not hitting me in the face. There's nothing that I encounter every day that's like, you forgot this thing, and so you need to remember it and go over that known information again. It's just like totally blind and void and not there. And there's nothing that's shoving me in life to go and do that, to actually review things in the past.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. Because of sleep process.
Reluctance to move.
Mm-hmm.
I think,
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So,
because
once you lock onto something, sure as hell don't want to change it.
Yeah.
But also don't want to resolve it. Like, especially like for me with thinking, I don't want to resolve whether or not that thing is true, but I still want to believe it. So I'm like, well, I'm just going to keep it in my mind and just hope that it's true, and never go in and verify whether or not it's true.
Yeah. I think I think Gray makes a good point for sure. I find that when I do sleep processing, that is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to move myself, and I'm trying to move my values, and also my NI, which is non-existent pretty much, but the little bit of NI that I do have. I'm trying to move it in a new direction, and I'm fighting myself in that. Sleeping is like, it's like fighting against yourself in a demon state, which just makes it worse.
Yeah.
What was the question you asked again, Kevin? Sorry.
Yeah. Just has it been a struggle for you to do sleep? Is it tough?
Yeah.
To do?
I think I used to sleep process more when I was a kid, ironically, and I used to like dream more because that's what I associate with sleep. But as I got older, the perception of sleep that I had was that whenever I would kind of get into sleep, I would judge myself for it because it didn't seem like an adult thing to be doing. Sitting and like creating visions for yourself, and I would judge myself a lot for it. And I guess the older I got, and I guess probably the more I did TE as well, the more I would just ignore it, to a point where I actually realized in the beginning of last year, I remember saying to myself, I was like, there's a piece missing. There's something that's not right. You know, there's something that you're not doing, but you don't know what it is. So I'd completely forgotten how to do it. And then I was forced into it because I started getting sick all the time. So it like actually, it shows like I'll overwork myself to a point where I start getting sick, and then I'll say, I don't understand why I'm so sick all the time. And then eventually a crash comes where I'm physically exhausted to a point where I can't hold it back. And then I sulk for a bit, you know, usually. And I judge myself for that, and then on it goes. But yeah, it's really hard to get to that point. I have to be forced into it.
That's Nick talking about double masculine sleep.
Because MFI likes a challenge. Yes, I relate. We share our.
Masculine FI likes a challenge. Yeah, that's funny.
Still trying.
Yeah.
So, ready to move on to the next thing here. Do you guys have any tips, tricks, hacks for sleep? What are you guys using to like push yourself to sleep? You know, I guess.
Yeah, I actually have something here
probably
as well.
silly to people who are like save your sleep or like sleep first, but you know, we got to talk about this.
Yeah, so this has been something that I've been looking into very recently, just out of necessity, right? I would say the first thing would be like you actually have to find someone who's good at sleep and have them coach you. Like if you're not good at it, like why would you try figuring this out by yourself? I mean, that's my saviors, but it's like go find someone who is willing to help you. Like, what a concept. Like, so that's one. I would say find someone who and also find someone who is doing sleep processing well. I mean, the OP community is good at identifying that, but then also like they're doing it in a way that you want to do it, right? Mm-hmm. Right. So it's like they're you the identity that you want. So then you know, so there's no inner like conflict when you're following their advice, right? From there, now this might depend on the functions. I mean, one, you have to get away from people. I think that is universal, right? Like shut off your phone and like go somewhere else, like in solitude. For the SI-FI variety, I personally think that there's I think there's three major types of like sleep in there. Like one SI-FI, you're just like mulling. Like I don't know how to word it. You get your SF, the SF that always hit you in a certain emotional way, you know, and like all the stuff in your past, like the music, the movies, all the stuff that you know hit you at one point, just go back and rewatch that stuff, right? So you can reawaken those emotions, right? So that's I guess I'll call that mulling. The second one is more like present emotions, right? So it's like if you're feeling something, like actually check in with a journal or venting and say, okay, what am I feeling, right? Identify it. And then also ask yourself, why are you feeling it? And what is it saying about who you are, right? Because like it's, for example, if you're at work and you're feeling bitter and like you don't want to be there, you know, maybe your identity is trying to tell you, it's like, hey, maybe this is not for you, you know, like, and then I guess the third type is more like past, like distant past stuff. Like 5 years, 10 years, 20 years ago stuff. And it's the same process, but it's like you're revisiting all the stuff that you know you're avoiding, and you're picking out the emotions. You're asking, what are they? Why did you feel them at that time? Right? Sorting them out that way. And then also, yeah, what is it? What does that have to say about who you are today? And like, what, like, are you like repeating that, you know?
Mhm.
So I know it's like super blasty, but.
No, that was good.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
Mm.
Anyone?
Mm.
Tips? Hacks?
I wish I had some good tips. I think for me, music and long walks kind of sounds really cliche, but that's kind of what I do, to be honest. That's and I'll know that I need to sleep process if I'm avoiding music and avoiding walks. So because that's generally how I used to do it in the past. Also, I think daring to kind of go to another person and sleep processing, at least doing part of it together with another person. And this is just my personal theory, but I find that as intimidating as it can be, like for me, it actually helps a lot talking to NF blasters, people that have NF blast, because they are able to present a new perspective and kind of move that inner world. So if that's like, if you have someone in your life that maybe it works the same way, maybe if you have someone that has like a corresponding blast to your sleep, that could potentially actually work. Because yeah, that's I think it was an NF blaster that kind of triggered my sleep crash last year in both a good and a bad way. So that's maybe another tip.
So I have a few thoughts on this. So first of all, I'm certainly not an expert on sleep. I feel like I'm doing this like 1%. So
Yeah, none of us are.
but I have a few ideas. So the first is, I know when I can really get into my TI is when I'm like moving or walking and I can really think about things and just allowing myself to spend that time to actually like go into my brain and actually work through something in my brain, which honestly I think is more NT than ST, but it's still like TI, like actually thinking through something. And I find like getting away from the task that I'm trying to do and like taking a walk or moving in some way will allow me to get into my TI where I can actually kind of, it's actually NT, turn over my own thinking to think about something in a new way where like I'll actually have the right idea. So that's NT, but it's TI. So take that as you will. But the second thing is, I feel like I'm getting a lot of benefit at looking at the extroverted functions of my sleep animal. So I have SITI introverted, and I've gotten a lot of benefit at looking at the SETEs extroverted, because I see that where I'm very myopic and in my own little world and trying to build my own little ST routine that's just like falling apart and like not working, and I feel like I can't see the forest through the trees. I'm getting just like blinded by my own introvertedness, and looking at the SETEs and seeing that they're kind of play energy doing a lot of things in the physical world. It helps me realize that like I don't necessarily need to be pigeonholed into like doing a little ST routine for myself, and that I can kind of play energy, do SETE, and it's okay to kind of be bullshitty with like the things that you do, because the way that you do something, if you try enough things, the best way to do something will kind of rise to the top. That's kind of been my kind of understanding in looking at the SETEs. So I feel like in terms of like the myopia that happens with the introverted functions, like getting pigeonholed into your little routine, being able to look at the extroverted functions of your introverted functions can give you some triangulation to like where you're missing things because they're introverted, you know?
Right. Yeah,
but that doesn't help with like the processing aspect. That's helps with the myopia. The processing aspect, I got nothing.
Yeah, because this is something I've been thinking about. It kind of ties into what you were just saying, that I find that I learn a lot from other people's mistakes. So I can usually, what will happen is I'll see someone do something in a way that's maybe not ideal, or play above sleep in a play above sleep way ultimately. And then I'll be like, I do that too, and then I can kind of learn from their experience. So that's probably how extroverts learn in general, I'd say, just from looking at the world around them, and people in general, just seeing what they're up to. So yeah.
Well,
But that's
I was gonna say my tricks and stuff that I've figured out. It's not really it's going to be NF, but like meditation, like mindfulness, like learning to see your thoughts as they arise has been like incredibly helpful, because then when you're not meditating, when you're just living, and those thoughts, you can start to see them. Like I know when I have something I need to process, so seeing it is easier. Being able to practice mindfulness. So I would say if you NT sleep, mindfulness practice is definitely beneficial. At least it has been for me, because I can see those thoughts, and I'm like, that's the thing I'm trying to deal with. I need to do something about this. So I'll keep a journal next to me and write stuff down like right away, instead of just letting it go, which is my default mode my whole life. So I'm seeing the benefit of doing this, and it's actually working. I mean, changing your identities, masculine TI, is hard. I don't want to move, but if I see that I have some truth or some value that's wrong, I want to address that. I want to change it. I want to update it, but you have to do the work to get there, to see it. And that's the hard part. But I mean, I'm just figuring it out too, but that's what's kind of seems to be working for me right now, at least. So I don't know. Yeah. Someone says something positive here for us. It's really fun, guys. Thanks for doing it. Yeah, we're enjoying it. This is important stuff, right? Getting close to an hour here, guys. You want to try to wrap this up here quick, or address some of these stereotypes? You guys want to talk about some of those real quick?
Yeah, let's do stereotypes. If everyone else is up for it.
Yeah, sure. Let's do it.
Jump into that. One of them is that we won't take breaks for the self. Is that something you guys like? Go, go, go. You're always like trying to do stuff and never stopping to take breaks. We're all cranked up.
Yeah. I never saw myself like that, but then people started pointing it out. And that's when I realized, I was like, wow, it's actually something I do. I never sit down. I remember just the other week I was at a friend's place and she said, "You haven't sat down for 6 hours. Is everything okay?" And I was like, yeah, okay, wow, I guess I should sit, it's
take a break.
Yeah. So I do relate to that. What about you guys?
I think once I get going, then I do that. But I take breaks before I start doing stuff. But once I'm going, I'm like, okay, let's do this to completion. I want to finish things. I don't want to stop when it's still halfway done. I want to do it, because I know if I stop, I might not come back. I might wait till the next day or something. So I want to do the whole thing. Yeah.
I'm not going to come back to it because I'm not thinking about it. I'm like moving on to the next thing. Yeah. I feel like for me, yes and no. I can see when the tribe pulls me to do something, when I have some sort of extroverted force to force me to do something, I'll just I go on a snowball where I'm just like going, and I can expend massive energy without even realizing it. But I need some kind of external force to push me to do that. If I'm just kind of by myself and I don't have a lot of extrovertedness pushing me, then it's more just chaos, any chaos in my brain. Rather than me running around doing lots of things. If I'm left on my own devices, I'm not going to go run around, do lots of things in the physical world. I'm going to sit and be in my brain in La La Land, which is still chaos. It's a lot of shit going on in my brain, but it's not necessarily expending energy physically. So yes and no.
Yeah. And then as for me, my body takes breaks, but none of my breaks feel like breaks. That's how I would describe it. I take breaks at work. I'll take naps, and because we're working from home and stuff, I'll take naps but even when I'm taking the break, my mind won't leave me alone. It's hey, you should be doing this, or hey, did you think about that? And there's always noise. So even when it's a break, it's not. That's how I would describe that.
Right. Yeah. Similar. Yeah. We're always productive. Is that that's a stereotype? We're always productive. Yeah. No.
I feel like it's the blast sleeps that are productive because they can do something and then have it on repeat and have like a system so that they can always get shit done. You know, those ones seems like the productive ones.
Yeah.
Or just like throwing shit at the wall.
Yeah. When I'm productive, but I'm not always productive. Yeah.
No, I can't say that I am either. And I'm also Demon Blast. I feel like I never get to a point where I'm actually ready to kind of finish a project or, whatever it is I'm working on.
This is kind of related. We have trouble putting on the brakes. It's kind of the same thing, really.
Mm-hmm.
Not stopping. It's kind of the same. We're super chatty. Do you guys see yourself as being chatty?
Yeah. When I'm if I'm not sleep processing, if I haven't had a sleep crash, then I can talk for hours. I really enjoy talking. Yeah.
I used to think that I was really quiet, actually, because a lot of times, like when I get around a group of people, it's hard. Like I don't want to talk because I'm kind of DE. I just want to like take everything in, But especially since I've started my YouTube channel, when I'm rewatching my videos, I'm like, holy shit! Like I'll just get on. I can just I think I can talk for days, and I kind of didn't notice it. So yeah, I kind of feel like that.
Yeah. What about you, Reggie?
I'm chatty to the degree that I'm comfortable, which I feel like is everybody, right? Like I think the more I feel comfortable like sharing my FI, the more chatty I get. Like actually. If I'm in a because honestly, like if I'm in a business context or if I don't trust you or whatever, it's like I'm just like, okay, what's the point? My TE's like, okay, here's the point, and then I'm gone. Like I don't
right.
Yeah. So I'm actually known, for example, at work, like it took them months for them to get me to talk, And like, I'm on Discord and I'm talking for hours, but it's like when I'm at work or when I'm like around family or whatever, it's like, hey, okay, did you do this? Yes or no? Okay, cool. What do you need from me? All right, we're good. Let me go home. Like that's how I operate.
I feel like so many of the DEs are like that. And I know Shannon and Dave have commented on this before, that a lot of times the DEs are so, like, it's so dependent on the context because we're trying to take, well, for me, it's like I'm trying to take in the vibe of the context and kind of figure out what's going, like, is this an appropriate, like, SF appropriate time for me to, like, be chatty or is it not? I'm sure it's different for you, but the same kind of thing that the DEs are trying to take in something about the tribe. So I know Shannon Davis said that before, that a lot of the DEs can be really, really quiet, like in a group. But then once you get them in there, like the setting where they're comfortable, it's like you can chat for days.
I don't think anyone's ever accused me of being chatty, but when I get on a topic that I'm interested in, like something in my IJ box, I guess, I can talk a lot. And then when I'm around other people that are interested in that same thing and they want to talk, then I'll talk. But most of the time I'm not talking. And I've had social anxiety a long time, and I'm working on that a lot now. So I'm finding I'm talking a lot more these days. So,
Yeah, I'm the same way. I thought I was really quiet, and it was social anxiety. It was I'm so scared of people. I don't want to talk to them. It's like, yeah.
So I can be chatty if I want to, I guess. Another stereotype, we don't know ourselves. I mean, we kind of touched on it. It's not processing your, identity and stuff. Yeah. I feel like I do know myself, but not deep. It's like, I know the shallow parts pretty well.
I know my own feelings. I know how I feel. I don't know about, I don't know about my behavior.
That's not part of your identity though, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's not. I mean, sometimes, there are feelings that can feel very personal. Feelings to me, sometimes they feel very extroverted and non-personal and bullshitty. Sometimes they do feel very personal. So there's definitely a range there. But I feel like in terms of knowing who I am, I really feel like I don't understand my own behavior. And I have, that's my void of what am I doing? What do I want to do? Why am I doing what I'm doing? Why do I believe what I believe? You know, the NT thinking aspect of kind of who I am.
Yeah, I can relate to that, but I'm Savior DI, so sometimes I feel like I should know myself better, but I get surprised every day. So, yeah, I don't think I know myself too well. I do and I don't. What I've already sleep processed, that's pretty much set in stone, and I'll lean on that quite a lot. But yeah, besides that, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I relate to what you just said, where it's like I do and I don't, like, because kind of like what I said before, it's like when I finally do sleep process, it's like I'm like, oh yeah, this is connected to I already was. But I guess for me, I do think that stereotype for me is true in the sense that when I'm in the midst of my play like addiction, it's like I forget myself. That's how I feel. Like it's like I go into like almost like a trance or like a haze, and it's like you're just doing a bunch of stuff, and so you lose yourself. Like so, for me, it's not like I don't know who I am. It's just I forget, and so whenever someone will ask me a question, and let's say it hits me a certain way, like I'll be startled. So it looks like I don't get myself, but it's just like they're forcing me back awake almost. So
right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's when I have the thought of thinking of myself and I push it away. I'm like, nah, I don't want to think about me. So yeah. Let's see. Probably feminine D. Like, and he said this we're the D's are socially anxious that we're all
That is weird. We're all about the tribe, but at least if you're an EJ or sleep last, a lot of us are scared of the tribe. Like, how does that work?
Who's there? It's interesting. Chatting with strangers than with friends. Oh wow.
Oh, that's interesting.
Not me at all. Yeah.
So you there who's an IP, right? Is that an IP chattier with strangers?
Wow.
Yeah. Maybe it's a DI thing. I love talking to strangers as well. I seek out people and I abuse them. would play. But yeah.
I feel like I discovered that I have permission to like talk to strangers like 4 years ago, and it was like amazing. It was like I gave myself permission to go and like chat, to like walk up to a stranger and be like, "Hey, stranger, let me just like chat with you," because it was like I feel like I'm like stealing their time or something, or like being rude by like maybe they don't want to talk to me. So I like gave myself permission to like talk to strangers and be chatty with strangers a few years ago.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's so weird.
Yeah. Actually, what you said about sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Reg.
No, go ahead. What are you saying, Catherine?
Yeah, I was just gonna say about social anxiety, and again, I think it's interesting what actually drives the functions, right? Because a lot of DEs will have social anxiety, but that's kind of what pushes them out into the world, right? Like they feel, DEs feel responsible for it, I guess. And so maybe that responsibility is driven by social anxiety, just like sleep loss is kind of driven by this perception that you're lazy, right? So it's
such a good point. Like I'm worried I'm lazy, and so I have to run around and do all these things. Or like I'm so worried about what other people will think of me that I have to like go out and please people or do the things that people want me to do or something like that. Yeah, totally.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Sorry, Reggie. Go ahead.
That's really good. I typically with strangers or I don't. I think you're right, because now that I'm remembering, even when I was really young, I had like I would create little TE regimens for me to like talk to this amount of strangers a day, like because I wanted the skill set. So even if I didn't like you, it's like I would force myself to be like, okay, talk to this amount, ask them these questions, do something nice for them or whatever. I still didn't like them, or but I did feel obligated to at least have that skill set for sure.
Yeah, that's interesting. And it'll kick in at different ages, right? Because I remember I started talking to people probably when I was about 16, 17. And then over a summer, I just transformed into this completely different person. And then after that, it's like, yeah, I think it must, whether it's play, I'm not sure what function or animal is kind of responsible for that, but I can recognize the change in behavior that kind of came after me feeling responsible for communicating with people and taking care of other people. Yeah. And a new value was established in that. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I think for me with social anxiety, I had a value that you don't talk to strangers, and you don't want them talking to you either. It's like I would get annoyed when people would talk to me, like standing in line or something. Like, what are you doing? We don't know each other. Why are you talking to me? But because I just didn't want to have to do the interaction thing, you know? With
Right.
So I see that that's bad. I get that that's bad, but I'm trying to work on that. It's a struggle. Yeah. I don't know.
It's not necessarily bad, you know. It's,
well, it is nice that people are friendly with each other. I mean, why should I not be able to do that? I mean, I'm putting up that barrier in myself, you know.
Yeah.
So I see that, but it's a struggle. Let's see. We don't get enough real sleep. That's another stereotype. Is that you get plenty of sleep, Julia?
I sleep 8 hours a night every night since I was a kid, like clockwork. Yeah, get plenty of sleep.
Yeah.
I think
I don't sleep.
I think I have very. Oh, you don't sleep. Just period. I don't sleep. Yeah.
I fall asleep really easily at night. I go to sleep at like 10:30 every night, and I fall asleep like 5 minutes. I'm asleep.
Wow.
But then I wake up at like 4.
Oh yeah.
Every day. And
How many hours a night do you get?
Between 5 and 6 usually.
Oh, okay, that's not a ton.
6
Okay.
max.
Yeah.
I guess I said 8, but usually I get about 7. But like if I get less than 6, I really don't like it. I really like to try to go to 7, and then it's between 7 and 8. But very, very consistent. I fall asleep easily.
Reggie, would you say that when you do sleep, is it irregular sleep? Is it like, do you go to bed at the same time every day?
No.
I don't know.
I like, even when I would try, like, because my problem is, like, even when I would try to regiment it, it's like my body is, I don't know what's going on. It's like it's just stressed out. That's actually what it is. I'm just stressed out all the time. So it's like, even if I were to try to force myself to like have all the lights off, all the electronics off by like 10:30, right? But I would just lay in bed for like 4 hours with my eyes just like staring at the ceiling, you know, and then the next day would be screwed, right? So the next day it's like I stay up until 11 or 1 or whatever, and so it's never been consistent ever, you know.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. Same for me. Yeah, I was doing this like self-assessment kind of sleep, you know, just the other week with my doctor. And when you start getting the questions, then I started realizing just how little sleep I actually get. But in my head, that's normal, you know. So I'm like, I sleep, you know. But it's just that sometimes I'll sleep for 10 hours just because I haven't gotten enough sleep, you know, the 5 nights prior to that. So yeah, I wouldn't say that it's good. No.
Yeah, that's so interesting to me to hear that all 3 of you either don't get sleep or get less sleep than me. I wonder if it's actually an environmental thing. So my mom is also sleep last. And I remember as a kid, it was ingrained in us every single day. Like you have to turn out the lights at a certain time, and it must be dark when you sleep, and it must be quiet when you sleep. And when the majority of the people in my family sleep with earplugs, I always sleep with an eye mask. Like we have, like in my family, we take sleep kind of seriously.
Sleep seriously.
And I sleep in a very dark, quiet cave, and I have like my eye mask and my earplugs that allow me to do that. And it's something that like my mom taught me when I was like 5, you know. And so it's just something that became part of my, I guess, ST kind of. Do I have an ST actual sleep routine that I didn't even know about?
Wow.
That's good. Figured it out.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's really cool.
Interesting.
And if you use melatonin or other aids to help you sleep.
Yeah, I do.
I've actually started using melatonin since the pandemic. I've noticed that just since the pandemic, I think since I'm like out and about in the world less, and sometimes I'm like getting less sunlight, it makes it just slightly harder for me to fall asleep. So I've started using melatonin just recently, and I'll use it when I travel as well for jet lag.
Catherine, you were using it, you said?
Yeah. But I'll forget about it at times as well. And I'm like, oh, melatonin, that could probably help me. So it's I'm not even regular with that. So yeah.
Reg, you were saying something? Or about to say something?
Yeah, I have never used melatonin. I have like, not to get into it too much, but like I have a weird observer for fear about like pills and stuff. I don't like it. Like I freak out. I'm like, I don't know what it's doing to me, and like so I have never tried it. I've never tried it. I probably need to. I think the only supplement, if you will, is I've recently been using like, how like on YouTube they have like these like relaxing playlists or whatever with like the ambient noises and all that. Like I'll use that. But that's about it.
I got into CBD this summer. I got gummy bears. So I'll take those throughout the day for anxiety, and then like at night I'll take it. And I didn't have trouble falling asleep anyway, but it does help with that.
I've thought about using them. Do you like them?
Do
they help you fall asleep, or they help with primarily?
If I take too much, I got the 1,000 milligrams, which is really high, but I take half throughout the day, like 6 hours apart, and then at night I take a whole one, so it's 1,000 milligrams. If I take 1,000 during the day, I fall asleep in like 15, 20 minutes. Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
I've actually looked into those a lot. I haven't started using them because I feel like I don't need it.
Yeah.
But I've kind of had those, in my back pocket in case I need them.
It is nice. Yeah, it's good. I like them. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I've tried it. Yeah, and before when I had a lot of stuff buried in sleep, it would just give me anxiety. So it like trigger really bad sleep processing. But now I've tried it again, and it actually works pretty well. Yeah. So yeah, should probably maybe try it again.
Yeah. And we got here. Kevin with the NFI.
Like that.
I'm a hippie here. Well, one of the stereotypes, we soar early in life and then crash harder later in life.
I hope so.
No, I'll let you know.
I'm still waiting to soar.
Yeah.
I just kind of found my niche in life, and it's
Hey, Reggie, what were you saying?
Yeah.
I was saying, I hope that's true. I don't mind crashing. If I can run shit, I'm like, all right, bet. Like I'll just delegate it. Like, sure.
I love that PE.
I did actually. I had one really big crash in my life, only one. And it was when I was in graduate school, and I had taken on way too many projects, massively overburdened myself, and I was doing so many things. And it was a period of time for maybe about 3 months, and it was the period of time where I had the most anxiety, the most just pretty severe burnout from a really, really short period of time. So I feel like I've had one period of time where I went up and then went down, and I was like, okay, I'm never doing that again. And now I'm cautious about the amount of projects that I take on. But that's not a lifelong thing. It was one massive period of anxiety, and then the crash.
Yeah, but it seems like you actually took something from it also. Now are you able to manage your time and energy better after that?
Managing time is, I wouldn't say managing time. I really struggle with managing time. Also, I learned to say no to taking on new projects,
right?
And not overburdening myself, because it was such a massive, the amount of anxiety I felt during those 3 weeks was I went from being totally even keeled, la 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 la, to panic attack in 2 weeks. It was a really intense period of time. But yes, I did learn some lessons from it.
Yeah, cool.
That's really good.
That's good. Yeah, I think. Sorry.
No good.
Uh,
I did on occasion. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie.
Really?
yeah.
Late teens, early 20s. Yeah,
hmm
just go, and then come
Why
home
the
and
fuck would I wear completely different clothes to sleep? What? Because you're in bed.
Yeah.
I relate to this person.
Yeah.
You know, why would you need different ones? This is ridiculous.
No, I have observer fears about bacteria in bed. Like nothing is allowed to touch the bed. Yeah.
Teenage boys don't think about germs and stuff like that. It's like,
Sorry. Like, yeah, you don't wear so maybe this is me outing myself, so don't judge me. It's like you don't wear clothes when you go to sleep. Like that's just why would you do that?
commando.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. But is that like a time saving thing? Like you don't want to bother like putting on another thing?
No, it's just uncomfortable. Like wearing clothes in bed, period, is uncomfortable. I don't get that.
It's restricting,
wear pajamas.
Yeah.
I'm like,
I
why would
understand
you
that.
do this to yourself? This makes no sense.
We're learning a lot.
I agree, Reggie.
Not wearing anything to bed, like from both a time saving point, you don't want to put on other clothes, and from like a comfort point, I understand that. But just jumping into bed in the clothes that you've been wearing, running around in all day, every day.
Yeah, no.
It wasn't under the covers though. It was like on top of everything, just laying.
Okay.
Oh. I think the only time I've done that is when I'm truly like, it's like you'd have to be extremely exhausted, right? You just have to not give a fuck. Like, it's just like, look, I've done that when I was like really big into workouts. It's like, look, sometimes I'm so exhausted. It's like I'll just do laundry as soon as I'm done here because I need to sleep. Like I can't. So.
Yeah, sure. It's probably happened a few times for me as well.
All right, we're going long here. Let's hit one more of these. We do a lot of sleep talking as a stereotype. We talk while we're sleep processing while we're talking. You guys do that? I know I've been called out on it, so I know I do it. But
yeah, I do. Yeah. It's so cringy. It's so cringy.
Super cringy. Yeah.
Like, why are you talking about the most personal things? Yeah.
Yeah. I had a like my first real sleep crash when I was about 25, and it was a pretty bad one. And I would do it I would just sleep process with strangers, with new friends. It was just really inappropriate, And I could tell in the moment that people were like, what's happening? Like, why is she doing this to us? But I couldn't stop it. It was just such like a brutal force. And then after that, I'm trying my best not to let sleep kind of seep out into play too much, because it's like, it just, I need to kind of manage my self-image. I think, it's like, it's not the best time. No. But you do that too?
Right.
I think everyone in the OP community knows I do that. I like my reputation is just ruined at this point. I've just accepted it. I'm owning that as part of my DI. I'm gonna make it awkward for you guys. I'm not even sorry. Like, if you're gonna talk to me, you're gonna get some personal shit. I'm sorry. Like, it's just how it's gonna be.
Well, I feel like I just had a tiny little experience of that right now in this video, where I realized I actually do have a really like thorough ST routine for like my actual sleeping, which I hadn't thought about that. I hadn't looked at that. I didn't know. And then as you asked me, as I'm saying it, like, oh yeah, I always have to sleep in the dark with earplugs without like da-da-da-da. I'm like, oh shit, I have a really intense sleep routine going on. That I didn't know about. Yeah.
Put that
Yeah.
It's good. Figure that out.
Yeah. Because it's like I hadn't processed it before. I'm not looking there. I hadn't thought about what I'm actually doing. And so now when you get on video and ask me about it, it's like, well, I guess I got to talk about that. Now I got to process it.
Right. Yeah. I think that's the thing I've seen with lead blast is like, you don't really know what you think until you start talking. You start saying it and then you're like, oh, that's what I think. You see that it's accurate. Oh shit. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I relate to that as well. Kevin. I mean, there's that whole controversy or whatever, but like, yeah, I mean, like, I think for me, it's like until someone asks me about it, I don't feel like I need to worry about it. Right? It's like, okay, it's just relevant. But it's like the moment someone asks me, I'm like, oh, okay, now this is actually important, right? It's really backwards. But it's now it's important. Now let me process it now so that I can give them something.
Yeah.
And it's also like don't know what I think and don't know what I feel with the sleep last, because it's like one of your functions is extroverted, and so you need to process it extrovertedly. I need to process my emotions out loud extrovertedly. And the other one, TI, I also need to process it out loud extroverted because I'm not spending time in my own brain looking at it. So it's like thinking and feeling you have to process out loud. And both of those can be really cringy and embarrassing and personal.
Yeah.
And
Agree.
Cringy. That's about right.
Hmm.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and wrap this up here then. Thank you all for doing this for me. I appreciate it. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you for setting this up, Kevin. This was so much fun.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
And Julia and Reggie both have YouTube channels. Their links will be in the description. Go follow them and like all their stuff. They're awesome.
No.
Right.
Okay. Sure.
All right, Reggie. Thanks everybody for in the live stream. Thanks for all the questions. Sorry we didn't hit everything here. Take care. See you guys later.
Bye, YouTube.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, are we still recording? It looks like it.
I guess so. I guess so.
We are live. Oh, great. Now we can talk about Kevin.
Okay.
That's the only FE here. God damn it. Okay.
All right,
Is there a way for us to stop? Just leave?
We just have to leave studio.
Okay. Bye. Oh, now it's just me. All right.